Welcome to the middle ground. I'm Ohio Divided. He's Storm and Norman, and this is the Ohio edition of the show. Ryan Day is moving different. Coming off a national championship, you'd think he'd finally get to breathe after all the heat he's taken over Michigan the last 4 years. But nope, this man wants blood. He's not satisfied with one title. He's hunting for a dynasty. Nick Saban is gone. There's no clear king of college football. The throne is wide open, and Ryan Day is eyeing it. When he says things like, "I'm never happy with anything," after being asked about two dominant defensive performances, that tells you all you need to know. He sees the window. He knows the talent on this roster. He has Caleb Downs. He has Jeremiah Smith in the building right now, and he's ready to go all in. Norm and I are breaking it all down tonight. Plus, Norm is back at you with 8 more picks this week. Strap in. Let's get to the show. Norm, how's it going tonight?
It's going well, man. We are fully in football season. It's not football season until the Browns have a depressing loss, so I think it's officially football season now. We'll get into that, but it's here. We're fully in it. We got NFL, we got college, we got games tonight. We got it all.
So in your 15 to 30 second response to my intro of Ryan Day starting a dynasty, we'll get into it later to go a little bit further in depth. Where does your head go when you hear that?
I mean, I've been saying for years, generally the Ohio State fan was like clamoring to have Urban Meyer back. And I would always say, I don't know why you want Urban. The best Ohio State coach we've ever had is coaching the team right now. That's never changed. I think finally winning the national championship, it feels like a floodgate's going to open, whether that's winning back-to-back this year, winning multiple championships over a 5-year span. I don't know what it ends up being, but it feels like this team's going to be getting another national championship a lot more soon than they had to wait between the last one.
I agree with you, but I think when you go back 2 to 3 years ago, I think we all saw the potential that Ryan Day could bring with the Ohio State program, and that he definitely had all the ability in the world to bring multiple championships to the school. But I don't know about you, but like this just feels different. Like you have pissed off Ryan Day after he has every reason in the entire world to basically sit back and be like, "Shut up, fuckers. I just won you a national championship. Don't come at me with this, Michigan that." Like, the dude is, you can tell, a lot more relaxed, and he seems a lot more laser focused on just seeing what is in front of him right now. And I think, like, a lot of that has to do with Nick Saban's no longer here. Nobody runs college football right now. And I got the 2 best players in college football on my team. Now is the time to go. Parlay 1 into 2, if not 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is I don't know if he's necessarily more locked in. I think honestly for him it's a confidence thing. Like winning the national championship and the turn it made in the playoffs last year. Like it always felt like Ryan Day had, was a great mind, and he, had a good feel for the game around him. But then, when the rubber was meeting the road, it felt like there would be something missing. Whatever that was, it doesn't feel missing now. Obviously, we're only 2 games into the season, and one's Grambling State. But I think there is something to be said when you're beating down teams, even when they suck, and not letting them score. I think zeros on the board, no matter who you play, is impressive. Obviously, that includes all the backups that played a lot of time too. So I think it just shows top down, everybody's locked in, and I think that's got to continue this week because I think Ohio is extremely scrappy, and as we found out this past week, if you fuck around in college football, you could get bit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't want to get too far into it now. We got a whole Ohio State segment later, but I think Ryan Day is definitely primed, and for me, I don't really care that he's beating the number 1 team in the country. I don't really care that he just beat the shit out of an FCS school and it is just a low-level team that they played. For me, it's his comments and just the way that he moves, and you can just see it in him. But like I said, we're going to get into that later into the show. But for now, let's get around to our headlines. Around college football last week, we had a couple upsets. Florida taken down by USF. USF's out here ruining seasons early, just 2 weeks in. Blows out Boise State week 1. Week 2 goes into the swamp. Florida bottles that game. I think there was a really stupid decision that another spitting incident or something that a Florida player had down the stretch, basically allowed USF to get into field goal range late in the game. USF knocks him off, and you can't help but ask at this point, like, Billy Napier is back up against the wall as far as he's ever been, and I cannot see him being, with Florida's schedule the rest of the way, I cannot see him being here next year.
Yeah, I think this is the cliche case of a team looking ahead. We'll talk about it later, but Florida playing LSU this week. And I think they overlooked South Florida. I think South Florida is a pretty damn good team this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, their offense isn't anything that's I wouldn't even call it very creative. They have the quarterback. We know in college football that's everything. And they have a solid defense. So, I mean, I think they're a sneaky Power 5 team. I mean, I think they're the easy team for people to say to make the playoff or the group of 5, I should say, to make the playoff. Obviously, they're the leader in the clubhouse right now. But, I mean, I think they're legit good. And I think Florida took them for granted, left them hang around, and, obviously they inevitably won the game. We're going to just preview what we'll talk about later. South Florida has an absolute gauntlet to start the season because they're playing the Miami Hurricanes this week, so they don't get a rest up at all. So we'll get to that later. But going back to Florida, I think it's a look ahead situation. They got LSU, but at the end of the day, this Florida team, I feel like it wasn't necessarily playoffs or bust, but if they weren't, having their eyes on the playoffs and just missing. It felt like Napier was going to be gone. Obviously, that's not locked in yet, but I would say if we're putting percentages out there, I would say it's got to be at least 75% he's not back. I mean, anytime you lose to an in-state team, they rival. I think I saw a stat that it was the first time since, like, World War II that they lost to a Florida team that wasn't Florida State or – Miami. So just a crazy, set of circumstances for them to lose to the USF, just how it looks. And I know I'm talking up USF, but at the end of the day, it's not looking good. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond and they're going to have to get up quick because we saw what LSU did to Clemson a few weeks ago. That defense is pretty legit. So, I mean, if you thought USF's defense is good, LSU's got another one that's better than that. So,
for sure, that LSU defense is nasty with everybody they added in the portal. But the one thing I want to say about Florida is I know it's only 2 games into the year. Like DJ Lagway, uber talented kid, had a really good freshman campaign and everything. But I through 2 games that I've seen, and I haven't sat down and watched every single Florida game. I've caught bits and pieces. I've caught a majority of the USF game, but I guess I was kind of expecting a little bit more of a elevation in DJ Lagway's play just from year 1 to year 2. You hear coaches all the time talk about that step from year 1 to year 2 is about as big of a step as a kid's ever going to make in their entire college career, probably in the NFL too, just from their rookie year to their second year. You start to adapt a little bit to the speed of the game, the physicality of that next level, that type of thing. And, I mean, yeah, physicality is important in things for the quarterback position, but I think really like the speed of the game and just processing things as a quarterback in college football. There's still 10 games to go. Like, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I just expected a little bit more improvement or for DJ Lagway to be a little farther along at this point in the year or just with the good freshman campaign that he had.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it's two-sided too. It's not just the speed. It's slowing down for you. It's also there's more film on you. It's kind of like we talk about with guys in the MLB that'll come onto the scene and be on an absolute hot streak to start their careers. then all of a sudden they slump. Well, I feel like that's kind of year two, in college. It's like, all right, there's film on you. You can kind of identify weaknesses and see some things like that. And if you're not able to adjust to that, that's something that shows, well, can you really elevate to that elite level, that we were considering? Because it's not like DJ Lagway was just another quarterback. He was in the echelon of quarterbacks. That's like, obviously he's not able to enter this year, but next year, I mean, there's potential number one overall pick chatter for him. So it's like you said, I mean, obviously it's only 2 games, but I mean, it's still concerning to not see a lot of, big plays. Because, I mean, you're still seeing some of those, great throws and whatnot. But, I mean, when you're struggling with USF, that I know I mentioned their defense, but Florida's just on another level than them. They're a team that you should still be beating. And the point spread of that's like 18.5 points. And you're in a battle with this team. Like, not to say that Vegas isn't right all the time, but it's one of those things that's like, clearly in terms of a talent paper, you're a much more talented team, because that's all that really means. So, I mean, clearly it's not a good utilization of his talent around him. So, I mean, I think, there's plenty of time to turn it around, but I think it's kind of similar to the Leavitt situation with Arizona State. They lose at Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's better than what I anticipated. I just thought that rebuild was still maybe a year away from, beating a team like Arizona State. But at the end of the day, Arizona State, their last drive to take the game leading field goal that inevitably wasn't enough, they had 15 runs and 1 pass. Sam Leavitt, another quarterback, potentially in that DJ Lagway conversation, which actually I think he might be eligible this year. Either way, he's the guy that's talked about, maybe not number 1 overall pick, but a first-round talent. And you're running the ball 15 times. I don't think it really matters. I mean, they did drive the field, but at the end of the day, they didn't score a touchdown. And you don't score a touchdown when you're first and goal because you're not willing to pass, or your quarterback isn't able to make a play. That I feel like we were anticipating. Like, it feels like a lot of level play versus those guys, kind of starting to come into superstars from where they were last year.
Well, it's even like Sam Leavitt too. Like, your quarterback's not even able to make a play, but 15 runs to 1 pass, you didn't have the trust to let him make the play, which is probably even more alarming than anything. Like, you didn't even allow him to go try to make the play because you just didn't have the trust in him to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is at the end of the day, I don't want to act like, I mean, they drove the field, stopped at the 1, kicked the field goal, but it's one of those things. It's like, I believe the only conversion was the 3rd and long that they completed a pass on, and they drove the field. But at the end of the day, they're keyed on the run. All it takes is one be like, hey, this is the one. It's going to be there. We ran the ball 15 times to 1 or 13 times to 1, depending on when you're running this play. And you decided to run it again. And again, they drove basically the entire field and ended on the 1-yard line. But ending on the 1-yard line is 1 yard shorter than what Mississippi State ended on, and that's why they're winning the game, and Arizona State goes home with a loss.
Yeah, and it's like, this is a quarterback, and this is like a quarterback too that led you to the college football playoff last year and damn near knocked off Texas, who was in the semifinal and was very close to being in the national championship too. So this is a kid that's been in big moments, played in big games, and to not trust him against a team that you were better than, I don't know. That's pretty crazy.
And I mean, we have to acknowledge, obviously, Scatterbo gone, but I mean, when you're running the ball 15 times, the run game was still good.
You're not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, they drove the field. I think the issue is they had, like, if you were thinking about Arizona State this year, you'd think they'd be like one-dimensional the opposite way when you got Tyson and you got Leavitt.
Right.
When they're running the ball every damn play just to kind of, step on the throat, when you're stepping on the throat, you got to choke the guy out. Not scoring a touchdown, that leaves that little that little gap in there, and that all it takes is a huge play like Mississippi State, and game's over. It's not like you're going to overtime where you're going to run the ball 6 more times and score. Game's over. So I also say that to say, with how Arizona State was running, if that was the mentality, I don't understand kicking the ball fourth and goal at the 1. It doesn't really make sense to me because you ran the ball 15 times. If that is the mindset, then you run it one more time. And you anticipate the team, if you get stopped, it's a tie ball game, and the team gets the ball at the 1. I mean, driving 99 yards with a minute left, that's pretty hard to do. When you kick that extra point, you opened up field. When the team's backed up, it's a lot harder to throw the ball. There's not much space for the quarterback to move around, and Mississippi State's gets to, 35, 40-yard line. They got all the space in the world. All it takes is a, miscommunication, and, that's how you hear the cowbells ringing.
Yep. Clemson had a little bit of a struggle against Troy as well, down 16-0 at halftime. I was intrigued watching this game and wasn't really surprised that they came back the second half and went on a 27-0 run. Clemson, obviously, one of the more talented teams, or at least we thought so coming into the year. But if they would have lost that game, that might have ended their season. I mean, they probably still would have been able to get to an ACC championship and had an argument to get in. But if you go and drop game 1 against LSU at home, and then you go and you drop game 2 against Troy at home, that's a pretty hard knock to your resume just to start the year. And everybody's going to be talking about how weak the ACC is outside of Clemson and Miami. But that was a scare. Obviously, they survived it. If they would have gone down, I don't know if Dabo would have made it to his house that night. I think Clemson fans are expecting big things this year, and that could have definitely ended it week 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the conference, they still kind of have that sneak around. You win the conference, you still get in there. But, I mean, it essentially is the way any wiggle room they have. It's basically winning the ACC, which I would argue that's kind of how they were last year. I don't think they get in at an at-large bid last year. But they win the ACC and they get in that way. So, I mean, they would have put themselves in the same situation, which, we've talked about the ACC. But, which is crazy to say. I mean, I was beating the Clemson, national championship ticket, just for price-wise.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, they're the third best team in the ACC, I think, by leaps and bounds. I would say comfortably Florida State and Miami are better than them right now. And I think as you go down the line, you could probably find some other teams to argue about. But I would say those two teams right now are the top 2 teams in the ACC. But I think Clemson had the old reading the press clippings situation and not playing the games. I think that was evident in the Troy game. Once they woke up, they ended up, winning by, double digits. But it took them a while to wake up. When they did, you're seeing some downhill plays. You're seeing the defense getting after it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, defense played okay. I mean, they allowed, I believe, 9 points because 10 points because 6 of them came on that weird tip interception situation. But so, I mean, and the defense is, I think, the thing that we didn't really worry about with Clemson. I mean, I think we both were kind of beating the Cade Klubnik. I mean, I feel like that we should have just named this disappointing quarterbacks because, I mean, you can throw Klubnik in with those guys we've been talking about.
I was literally about to say the same thing. I was going to say, we got to – now that I'm sitting here looking at this and thinking about it, what we have here on screen, DJ, disappointing start to the year. Sam Levitt, disappointing start to the year. Cade Klubnik, disappointing start to the year. The next guy we're about to talk about, he's a true freshman quarterback, so you can give him a little bit of a pass because we didn't know what he was coming in. But for fuck's sake, Dave Portnoy is out here on Big Noon Kickoff calling him the best freshman that's ever played the game. He is not living up to what the expectations that everybody had thought through 2 weeks. I agree. You could have just made this title quarterbacks that are not living up to the hype. And all 4 of these guys, you could throw in that bucket through 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say it as a Ohio State fan, but I think Underwood's the one I'm giving the biggest benefit of the doubt to,
You
because
have to.
out of
You
all the
have
teams
to.
that they played, he plays the best defense and he has the least experience. I mean, Arizona State's losing to Mississippi State. Florida's
And
losing to
he's
South Florida at home.
and he's on the road. I mean, I know Arizona's
Yeah,
road,
exactly.
but it's
I mean,
Arizona State was a better team. Like Michigan was dogs going into that game. Can you hear me, Norm?
you're breaking up there a little bit. I hear you now.
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah, but just to follow up, like, I mean, and just eye test with Underwood, I don't think he looked awful. Honestly, I think the game plan was something I was really disappointed in. It seemed every time Michigan, had a second and long or a 3rd and 5 or something where it's like, all right, let's have him, step back, to have a read and make a throw. They'd run a screen. They'd try to do something too creative and too cute, which is way against, the Michigan I feel like we've seen in the past where, all right, here's a read, go off your read, we'll get the first down. And it's like, I mean, I think the run game isn't quite as good as what it had been, but I think it's more just a line situation versus, running backs. I thought Haynes looked okay. I mean, obviously he breaks the huge run, which was massive, but at the end of the day, I think Michigan just across the board isn't as elite as it had been at certain areas, and I think a part of that's because they're young in quite a few areas. But at the end of the day, Underwood, like when they gave him some time, like I think you can see it in Underwood. Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of tape on him yet, but I understand he's a true freshman. It's at Oklahoma, good defense, but there's a lot of times it seemed like they were running the screen pass when it's like, all right, freshman quarterback to run the screen pass. Like I feel like there's a level of creativity that you can't just fall into the trap of being like, it's smart to, run a screenplay here. And it's like, well, both teams know that. And if you're trying to seriously try to beat Oklahoma at Oklahoma, you can't do that. And I mean, having the training wheels on, I think Ohio State, just to go back to week 1, I think maybe they, you could argue similar things for saying, but with training wheels or even Arch Manning. But I think in Arch Manning's case, I think there were some throws, but I just feel like the young quarterback's like, well, if this guy's the starter, I don't think you can have the training wheels on for a game against Oklahoma, because I don't think they were as good. I think Oklahoma's defense is better than Michigan's defense. I think that was proven. And I think Oklahoma's offense was better. So you can't have the training wheels on. Ohio State had the benefit of the doubt with, I think, being a little more equal with Texas. But honestly, I was a little disappointed. I thought they could have, I don't think Underwood was perfect by any means, but I thought there was things that I was like, kind of like thinking they could do more. And they were, kind of holding them back a little bit with just the play calling and whatnot. But obviously it didn't pain me to see. But I think the takeaway from that is I think Mateer might be your interesting, maybe dark horse Heisman guy. Guy just seems like kind of a dog, honestly. I wasn't very familiar. I'd watched a little bit of Washington State, kind of in passing last year, but man, I mean, I was pretty impressed. I didn't realize he had the running ability like he has. So I think it'll be interesting. I think Oklahoma's a really interesting team.
But yeah, that's hilarious because Metal and I did a show on Tuesday, and I could have basically taken everything that he said and just put it into your mouth. He said like everything you just said, the exact same. The one thing that I had mentioned is like back whenever Michigan was really good with Harbaugh back in 2021 through 2023, like the reason why they were very, very, very good is they were elite on the offensive line. It was never like that they had a a phenomenal skill on the edge. They didn't have a ton of speed on the edge. It was just because they were able to run the ball basically whenever they wanted, and they had a quarterback that can make the throws whenever the time called for it. And I agree with you. Bryce Underwood, the ball jumps out of his hand. He has as much arm talent when you just talk about destroying a football as good as anybody in college football. But the one thing that I see with him is he doesn't have great fundamentals right now. Like, you see him kind of like not stepping into throws, trying to do like not lining up his feet, not lining up his shoulders to his target, trying to do like the sidearm type stuff where sometimes you see some inaccuracies, which hopefully Michigan has coaches to work with him on that, because if he can get that right, the kid's talented. The hard part's done. It's just getting him fundamentally right. But yeah, it's just funny. You guys basically said the same exact stuff that I had said. And the other part that I brought up as well is I just question if Chip Lindsey and Michigan is a great marriage. Like, that's kind of two different styles that you're bringing in. When I think of a Chip Lindsey offense, I think of more of like a spread, like an Ohio State type offense. Get the ball to your playmakers on the edge, spread things out, use your talent. When I think of Michigan, we have an awesome offensive line, we have a great running back, we have a quarterback that can make timely throws, and we're going to punch you in the fucking mouth 40 goddamn times this game. I just don't know if Chip Lindsey, his offenses really are not constructed that way. And I don't know if that's just a complete difference of what Michigan has been and why they were suddenly successful for 3 years. I don't know. I think that they'll get it right. Obviously, they're going through a pretty tough period. They'll have an easy game this week that they'll win. But going on the road to Nebraska without Sharon Moore, that's not going to be easy. And you're going into their place with an experienced quarterback on themselves that has some talent as well. Michigan could find themselves 2-2 here pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the kind of signal game of what Michigan's going to be, because I feel like, we've talked about Nebraska kind of being frauds for a while, but this kind of feels like the year that they may be turning the corner. And if Michigan loses that game, it'll kind of feel like maybe Michigan's kind of the 8-4, 9-3. Maybe they're not playoff precipice type team. Like, whether that's fighting for playoffs or making the playoffs, which, I mean, obviously last week they didn't look the part. But I think that's part of having a true freshman quarterback in week 2 on the road. I mean, everything was against him in that game. But at the end of the day, I think that'll be the barometer test for them. Because obviously it'll be another road game. And they'll be able to see, all right, Nebraska isn't quite Oklahoma. Let's see how we stack up with them and then build off that. At the end of the day, I think that's kind of what I foresee. I just feel like at this point, Michigan's going to still kind of have the edge from a just general defensive game plan to kind of take away Raiola's strengths.
Yeah.
But we won't jump the gun there. But I think that will be an interesting matchup, though, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree. And then on a final note, we had some Buckeyes. Good week in the NFL for former Ohio State players this weekend. So, let's see. Marvin Harrison Jr. scored. Garrett Wilson had a really good game. He had a touchdown.
Scored.
Justin Wilson, wow. That fucked me up real bad. Justin Fields had a really good game. Pretty good debut for the Jets. Not completely sold on Justin Fields as a quarterback in the NFL, but he showed out week 1. Emeka Egbuka, guy that I said back in May, grab that guy as your rookie of the year. 2 touchdowns, game-winning touchdown at the end of the year, and he's going to fit in perfect into that offense, playing a complement side of Mike Evans. He's going to get a lot of targets this year. I think he is a route technician that is going to feast in the middle of the field, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of defenses this year. Aside from that, I feel like I'm missing somebody that also had a pretty good week. But when you have so many stars in the NFL that are performing, and you're probably going to see them perform on a weekly basis, this is probably going to be the normal. I don't know. Did I miss anybody, Norm?
I don't think they starred, but I believe Dobbins got in the end zone as well.
Okay.
I
I feel like I'm missing a receiver. I said Wilson, Mecca, Marv, JSN, the one I forgot. He had like 13 catches for like 130 yards or something crazy like that. So shocking.
Yeah, 9 for 124, which
9 for 120. Yeah,
that's great in itself. Sam Darnold threw for 150 yards.
Yeah.
So
Metal's a Seahawks fan, and I know he said that JSN had like 85% of their targets or something crazy like that.
Yeah, he had 9 catches for 124 yards. Sam Darnold completed 16 passes for 150 yards. So 26 yards and 7 catches for the rest of the team. Shocking that they did not beat the Niners in that one.
Yeah. So, yeah, Ohio State, shocker, wide receiver U showing out in the NFL. So that's just going to continue. We got a guy named Jeremiah Smith he's going to be pretty good once he gets up there too. You'll see him in a couple of years. But the Reds, your Cincinnati Reds, they are just hanging right along. The New York Mets, this graphic is actually right whenever we were yes, I did. This graphic is actually incorrect. I saw it right whenever we were starting. The New York Mets, they got swept, did they not?
They got swept.
They got swept. And your Cincinnati Reds are 1.5 games back. After being 2-8 in their last 10 like a week ago, they are back to 6-4. They're starting to figure it out. They're starting to win some games. And we're starting to believe again. Are they going to piss us?
Man. I mean,
are they going to let us down in the end?
We know what's going to happen.
I know what's going to happen. God.
They're going to. Once they went back 5 games, we said this. They're going to cut it to 2 games, maybe a game.
And here they come. Again.
And you know what? I say that, I believe, man. I believe, and I'll say for one big reason. Let's look at the last 2 series they had and the outcomes.
Yeah.
They beat the Mets in a series. The loss they had, a blown game. Was it not the first game of the series as well? I'm pretty sure the game they blew against the Mets was the game 1.
Yeah, way, game 1.
We go to the Padres. They blow game 1 against the Padres in similar depressing fashion as they did to the Mets, and they come back and win the next 2. Last night, coming back themselves, and then Stevenson having that home run to take the lead, and the night before coming back from being down. So I say this all to say this Reds team is resilient as hell. I know we're, making jokes about them, but every time it seems like this team's out, it feels even a little different than teams in the past because they kind of put themselves out. Like they have like a good grasp on a game, because the amount of times they've blown a big lead or had a lead late in the game that it's been blown. Generally teams lose the next day or have a losing streak or lose the series because it's just air coming out of you. Just like we blew this one and we can't get up for the next game. This Reds team's not like that at all. They have, we'll call it bird brains. They
bounce back quick.
Focus on a loss like that. Exactly. And they bounce back. So that part of it I respect. It's 162 games. So that's what you need. And at the end of the day, when we were talking about in the past, it's like, well, I mean, to get back, you need the Mets to fall off a cliff, and you need to win. You need to take care of business that you have.
And that's kind of what's happening.
The Mets series. Obviously, if they sweep the Mets, we're in a different situation right now. But at the end of the day, you win the Mets series, you win the Padres series. We're on to athletics. Obviously, that's going to take another win, a series win. I think the big thing is that if they can sneak a sweep against the Athletics or the Pirates or any of these series coming up, which I don't mention the Cubs or Brewers because it just seems unlikely, which honestly I should throw the Pirates in there with how the Reds have played the Pirates in the past, but it just feels like there's a decent chance again. And I'll pull up the Mets schedule because I'm not as familiar with what they got left. But I'll say they got the Rangers this weekend.
I'll say
I feel like Rangers are fighting for playoffs as well.
Yeah, right now I feel like I'm like sitting on a dock over top of a pond, and like I'm all in for these last 16 games. I'm all in. But to save my heartache and to save from breaking my heart, I feel like I've got like one foot in the water and then my other foot is just like my toes are dangling on the fucking edge. Like, God damn it. Here we go again. And to round it out with the Cardinals and then the Cubs and then the Pirates and then the Brewers, like, oh my God, I can't do this to myself. I know how this is going to end.
Which is crazy because I was just like, oh, maybe Major League Baseball adjusted the schedule to have you play your division to end the season. That is not the case at all.
So they got fucked.
The Mets and the Giants. I'm looking at the Mets and the Giants, and which the Giants also do only play division opponents. Well, they have got the Cardinals sprinkled in there. Well, I'll just break down what they got left, and we can talk about the Reds, what the Reds have left after, and kind of compare. So the Mets, they got a 3-game series at home against the Rangers this weekend. Rangers, they're in their own wild card race, so not an easy opponent. The series after that, 3-game home series against the Padres, not an easy opponent. 3-game home series against the Nationals, obviously a better matchup than the previous two. But Nationals, young, scrappy team. It's baseball. Would love for them to sneak a game or two. Series after that, 3-game series at Wrigley. That's going to be another tough series. And then to close it out, they go to play the Marlins, which the Marlins haven't been playing as well lately, but, I mean, they've been a scrappy team as well. So, obviously, I mean, it's baseball. There's no free squares, but I wouldn't say the easiest schedule. We'll jump to the Giants. Giants, we're talking about that one not being an easy schedule. Here's the Giants. 3-game home series against the Dodgers. 3-game away series against the Diamondbacks. 4-game away series against the Dodgers. 3-game home series against the Cardinals, and a 3-game home series against the Rockies to close it out. So the Giants play the Dodgers 7 times. They basically half of their games left are against the Dodgers.
That's disgusting.
So that is massive. And then for comparison, here's the Reds. They got a 3-game home series against the Athletics on the road, 3 on the road against the Cardinals, 4 at home against the Cubs, 3 at home against the Pirates, and they end 3 on the road against the Brewers.
The thing is, too, the Pirates, I'm sorry, not the Pirates, like the Cubs and the Brewers, in baseball, there's no such thing as resting your guys. Because a big part of baseball is consistency and, like, continuing to keep your guys into the routine of things. Because the second you get baseball players out of the routine, that's whenever they start to struggle. So, like, you're still going to see their best starters. You're still going to see their best hitters. You still are going to want to get them at bats. So it's not like you're going in to play the fucking Chiefs week 17 and like Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones, all their best players are going to be sitting out because they already got a playoff spot. Why risk anything? You're still going to have to go out and win these games. Nobody's going to sit there and just hand this to you. They have to go take it.
Yeah, I think for baseball, it's basically the last game. That'd be the only. So, I mean, the fact that the Brewers is the last series, maybe the last game, you have some of those guys resting, or they, put together. I just feel like they probably wouldn't put a bullpen game together because
you don't want to tax your bullpen right before going to the postseason.
Yeah, they would have a break though because they'd have that 1 seed. So it'll be interesting to see how they would play it, but I feel like that last game might be where they'd rest some of the hitters just for, like I've seen that happen, I guess I should say. Since they had the one walk locked up, I could also see them not doing that. So, but I guess I say that to say, I kind of had in my head that the Reds' schedule was so much harder than the Mets and Giants. And as I look at their schedules, I feel like everyone kind of has a brutal schedule to end it. And if we're just going wins and losses against each other, the Reds kind of have the easiest when you single it all out. Like the Brewers, their win-loss is going to bloat it, and the Cubs is going to bloat it because they're so good. that's 7 of the games. So that's basically considered, like, let's say that's us playing the Dodgers 7 games. Well, the other 8 games we're playing is 3 against the Athletics, who scrappy team, but the Athletics, if we were to do a side-by-side, the Athletics have won 67 games. The Marlins have won 68. So that's kind of like a wash for what we were seeing with the Mets. Cardinals have won 72. That's kind of like a wash from the Giants side for the Diamondbacks. And then the Pirates have won 64 games. As we compare the other ones, that's the Nationals have won 60. So as you kind of side by side the teams playing each other, the Giants might have a slight edge on easiest just because they got that 3 game with the Rockies, but they're not that different, to be honest. Like, as I'm looking at it, I feel like the Mets have the hardest just because the real only, I don't want to say easy series because it's baseball, but is a home series against the Nationals. Because I feel like the Marlins last series of the season just kind of feels like something they could be frisky in, especially when it's on the road at home or on the road for the Mets. Because, I mean, the Mets are 31-44 on the road. So just feels like something that could be, a little interesting. So I think it's the best case scenario for the Reds that I feel like I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the Mets having the hardest schedule left. And as I was, about to look into schedules, that's not what I anticipated at all.
No. And thank the Lord that we don't have to go to Pittsburgh. Thank the Lord that those 3 games are in Cincinnati, because the Reds, I can't even remember what the record is, but I think it's something insane, like 30 and like 60 or something in their last 90 games or some shit in Pittsburgh. Like, I think they've lost less than, like they've only won like 30 to 40% of their last, I don't know. Like, it's been a lot of games. They do not win in Pittsburgh. Moral of the story.
I mean, their record against Pittsburgh is awful. Their one on the road is just doubly
god awful.
Yeah, like it's awful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I think if we're gonna like dive in deeper, I think the road series we have would kind of be the ones you'd prefer to be on the road. Like Athletics on the road, I mean, it's just a part of your West Coast trip to end it. It's not really, I mean, baseball is weird for home field advantages, but they literally don't have, like, it's the one team where it's like, yeah, they literally have no home field advantage. If you look at the Athletics, they actually have a better away record than home record. They have one of the worst home records they have the worst home record in the AL. So that is the team you want to play on the road if you're going to play a team on the road. The only team who has a worse, well, I guess the Rockies as well. The Nationals and Rockies both have worse home records than the Athletics. But I mean, the more I'm diving into it, it's the more I'm believing again. So the Reds have gotten me. I'm all the way back. All I'll say is this: let's get 2 against the Athletics. We get a sweep. I'm probably irrationally confident.
Buying playoff tickets.
I think that would be categories as that. So at least looking at prices.
At this point, you just got to take it one game at a time. You have 16 left. You can't be sitting here being like, well, we got to win 2 out of 3 here, and then we need to win 2 out of 3 there, and then that'd be nice if we got a sweep here. Like, no, it is one game at a time. On a final note, I did see that Chase Burns is coming back this weekend. It sounds like they're putting him in a limited role in the bullpen, so it'll be interesting to see how he's utilized. I was banging the hammer a couple weeks ago about putting him in the closing role. I doubt that's what they're doing, or you probably would have heard about it by now. But I think having him in the bullpen will be good. I think that's a guy you can put in at any point and be like, yeah, he has a good chance of striking all 3 guys out. You feel pretty good. He might be your best arm out of the bullpen. The only thing going against him is he's young. You don't know how he'll respond in tight ball games if he's tie game, 1-run game, those kind of situations. But I think he's definitely a guy, like, if you do get into the postseason, you need to have that kind of talent and that kind of arm somewhere providing at some point.
Well, I gotta I got a little sneaky update to maybe close the Reds. Rhett Lauder rehab start on Saturday in Louisville. So yet another potential arm that we could see pulled up. I mean, dude, if we get Burns and Lauder up and Green's back, I mean, dude, this rotation is nasty. And then you can figure out who gets to the pen, or maybe you have some interesting. I mean, I don't know exactly how they would manage it, but man, there'd be a lot of arms to go around, to say the least. And
do you worry
that could potentially get thrown in the bullpen role?
Could be. Do you worry about Tito's decision making, where there's been multiple times he clearly has a younger guy that is more talented, where like Sal Stewart gets sit down on the bench, or like Will Benson, you don't start him for like 2 or 3 weeks, comes back, hits a bomb, back to the bench. Do you worry about Tito not having trust in him and like literally being like, I am not trusting a guy seeing his first major league action in a playoff game?
I mean, yes, I definitely would worry about that. But to me, Lauder, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, especially with pitching, like hitting, you have a defined amount of guys who can bat. Pitching, you know, if a guy's willing to go to the pen or make an impact elsewhere, you need as many as you can get. So, I mean, I feel like it could potentially turn into, hey, Rhett's going to be a couple inning guy, or maybe he's like a 7th inning guy. So he's not in quite high leverage, or is still high leverage, but not quite, you know, that 8th, like setup man, 9th inning guy. But I just feel like when you got a talented guy, you got to have him up. Like if he's healthy, he's got to be on the roster. He just has proven so much over his time, his short time last year, that he's got to be up. I mean, and just with how the bullpen just seems taxed, I mean, it just feels like they have to, man. But at the end of the day, that's if he's healthy. If not, then there's no reason to bring him up at all. I mean, I understand I want to make playoffs, but if he's fully healthy next year, we're having the same conversations. Like, I believe in the team going forward because of the rotation.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why it's like, just get in. Just get in. You have really good starting pitching. Get in, give yourself a chance. Sometimes you can get some things bounce your way. It's baseball. It's a little bit different than any other sport that's out there. A lot of times the lesser talented team can win more times than any other sport. So just get in. You have elite pitching. You have Chase Burns you're getting back. You have good starting pitching. And like, just get Lauder up there. You never know. Like you said, there's a taxed bullpen that the Reds are dealing with right now. You could very well get into a situation where it's like, Rhett, hey, I know this is your first big league action, but ready or not, figure it out. We're throwing you out there. You got good stuff. We like your stuff. Now go show us who you really are and make it happen in the prime time and under the lights. Any last comments before we move on from the Reds? I just don't break my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. If the Reds put up I think if they put up a winning effort and don't make the playoffs because the Mets wake the fuck up, I'd be happy with that. Like, as much as moral victories don't fucking matter, I do think there's an element to like not crumbling down the stretch. The team, like, as much as we talked about in the past, you know, you were talking about earlier about the 2-8 in the last 10 games last week. If we go through September and have a good September, I think that just sets you up for next year to be like, hey, we were primed, boys. We fucked up in August. Let's fucking go ham in March and April and May and June.
Start fast for once and then see where you end up.
Exactly.
They're always playing from behind, and they did it again this year. They started off 3-7, and I can't remember what the record ever really got to. But the point is, you historically start slow. Gain some momentum. If you miss the playoffs, it is what it is. I want them to get in the playoffs, but I've seen this story so many times with these guys. But exactly like you said, build some momentum, go into next year, and let's hit the ground running for once. For once. On to the Browns and the Bengals.
Completely agree, man.
Cincinnati Bengals take down the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, or I should say the Cleveland Browns take down the Cleveland Browns on Sunday by a score of the Bengals having 17 and the Browns having 16. An absolutely ugly game from both sides. Just really sloppy football. Week 1, you see it with a lot of games that are out there. Is what it is. From my point of view, this is the 4th straight win the Bengals have had over the Browns. It's 5 of the last 6. Don't really care. Starting off 1-0 feels amazing. It's a feeling we haven't had or we haven't seen in 5 years in Cincinnati. And to not have to start sounding the alarms week 2 feels pretty good for once. Like I said, last 4 seasons, they've started off 0-2. And it's like, well, you lost last year week 1. Are you going to win in week 2? Zach Taylor, 0-6 all-time in week 2 games. Never won a week 2 game. So any of you that are looking to place a wager out there, the Bengals are 3.5-point favorites at home against the Jags. I wouldn't be opposed to throwing some money on the Jaguars. I'll give my comments on the game, Norm, and then I'll let you kind of get into what you saw, and then we can go from there. I mean, obviously, I thought the Bengals played decent in the first half. 2 out of 3 scoring drives, you'll take that every time. The Browns are obviously trying to just prolong drives, keep our dog shit defense on the field, keep the offense off the field. Bengals obviously have a very high-powered offense. Second half, completely flipped. The Browns completely controlled the clock, completely controlled the line of scrimmage, completely controlled the game. It was the Browns all the way through. And if they don't miss an extra point, don't miss a field goal at the end, they 100% win that game. They lost this game. The Bengals didn't win it. But I will still take the win nonetheless. The part I want to get at with Bengals fans, I am sick and tired of hearing about, this defense looks so good. They shut them down. They only allowed 49 rush yards. They had the top 5 pass rush win rate this weekend or this Sunday. I do not care. I'm sorry, Norm, but the Browns were picking number 2 for a fucking reason last year. They drafted a defensive tackle. I think the defensive tackle they took can be a multi-year All-Pro, but he's not a quarterback that's coming into this team like a Jaden Daniels and completely rejuvenating the whole team and making everybody better. This is still a Browns team that has a Vegas win total of 5.5. They're probably going to win 6 or 7 games at most. They have average at best playmakers. They have average at best offensive line. Joe Flacco, who is 40 years old, nearly threw for 300 yards on you, and it wasn't like he was pushing it down the field. He was dumping it off to Sampson, who killed the Bengals out of the backfield. Your tackling still sucks. Your corners are god-awful. I shouldn't say corners. Cam Taylor-Britt, anytime the Browns are in any kind of 2nd and long, 3rd and long situation, I went back and watched the game. 29 was getting picked on. And I don't know how many times on Sunday I see him just flat-footed. Here comes Jerry Jeudy making a break. Oh, shit, I'm 2 to 3 steps behind. Oh, there's another completion. The defense isn't fixed. Stop with the bullshit I'm seeing on social media that, they allowed only 16 points, 49 rush yards. They're top 5 in pass, blah, blah. I do not care. This defense is still a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem. It's going to be an issue this Sunday. The Jaguars have an actual quarterback coming to Cincinnati, not a guy who's 40 years old. They have a good talent on the edge, a guy named Brian Thomas Jr. They have an elite running back, Travis Etienne, in the backfield. Travis Hunter, good player, won the Heisman. Probably should be a little worried about him. I think these issues are going to show back up this Sunday. I'm sorry. I don't mean to piss any Bengal fans off. I don't mean to shit on anybody's parade, whatever you want to call it. But this defense is not fixed. You just ran into a team that is average at best. That's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, to flip to flip to the Browns side of things, I think the thing I would say is Joe Flacco should have thrown for over 300 yards. When I'm looking at this game, really there's two position groups that I look at that let down this game. And that is special teams, whether that's kicking or return game, obviously especially kicking. Anytime you miss an extra point and field goal that are less than 40 yards in the National Football League, I mean, come on. I don't really know what else to say about that, but when you're not missing 50-yard field goals, I don't really know how you can take the guy seriously, respectfully. I don't think you can cut him at this point because you just want a job. Who are you just going to sign off the street when you just gave this guy some false, or not even false confidence? Because, well, we can call it false confidence because he didn't do anything with it. But it is super disappointing that from a length perspective, the longest field goal he kicked, he made, and he missed an extra point in short field goal. It felt like the epitome of a Browns loss. When I look everywhere else besides, well, I guess receivers, I feel like they were good, but when there wasn't a lot of possessions in the game, timely drops shine even brighter. So there was just a lot of big drops. Two of them leading to interceptions. I don't think I've ever seen that happen twice in a game. And Flacco by no means threw perfect passes, but the fact that he threw a ball in places that only his receiver could catch it, for them to be intercepted is asinine. And it comes from a little bit of unluckiness, but also just not catching the ball. And like I said, not the easiest catches in the world, but to have them end up being intercepted, it just ends up being on the receiver. I'm sorry if it's not easy to catch or not, but it's unlucky. I don't foresee a tipped ball flying into some guy's hands off a low pass happening two more times this week, but it was just tough to see. But to go along with the positives, I mean, you're talking about Flacco, but Flacco for a 40-year-old quarterback was doing what a 40-year-old quarterback should do. Reading the defense, taking what the defense is giving you, and getting the ball out. If you're looking at the receivers, the Browns had 4 guys with 50-plus yards, and all 4 of those guys had 5-plus catches. So that's spreading the ball around. The run game wasn't good, so we'll throw that on the list as well. I'll say this. I'm not a Jerome Ford guy, so I'm not shocked by it. Honestly, would have liked Sampson to have more rushes. He had the most in the game, but, I mean, if we're looking at the snap total of Dylan Sampson, it seemed like almost every play he was in the game, he was touching the ball, which is a good thing, but also bad because it shows how little of snaps he was getting. Which I guess the counterpoint was he's a rookie, tough to throw a guy into the wolves on that. But to continue going down that line, the rookies with PT were incredible. Sampson 8 catches, 64 yards. Fannin 7 catches, 63 yards. He did have one of those big drops. Graham was very solid. Basically forced one of the sacks when the Browns had 3 consecutive sacks. Schlesinger, all over the place. So pretty much every rookie that played in this game made a variable impact on the game. So that's as much as you can ask from that. There even some undrafted guys making plays. I mean, Sanders was the power back that scored a touchdown. And Isaiah Bond playing in this game at all to get and registering a catch felt pretty quick for a guy that's been on the team for less than a month. So that's the offensive side of things. Defense was incredible. Bengals score on the opening drive script. That's the toughest part for a defense like the Browns, I would argue. because I feel like Schwartz is a little bit of a feel-out guy and is good at adjusting to what the other team's doing, but it's hard to get that read on that opening script because the plays were scripted for a reason. But guys on defense, I just felt like, I mean, Isaiah McGuire, I was noticing a lot. I feel like his play and Alex Wright I seen in there getting some pressures, not really registering stats as I'm looking at it, but I feel like I was seeing those guys getting very involved, especially Isaiah McGuire. And I feel like obviously not Abdul Carter, but when you're seeing guys like that making plays, and then, I feel like Mason Graham had a very solid game as well. I mean, I think it kind of is like, all right, we got an extra first-round pick and didn't take Abdul Carter and got another very solid defensive player. So, all in all, to go back to the moral victories thing, it's super depressing because I come away very impressed with most of what the Browns did. And I think that's why I was personally so impacted by the game, because I thought overall the Browns played very, very well. They played, and not just from a player's perspective, I thought the game plan was immaculate on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I thought the offensive play calling was some of the best I'd seen probably since Flacco was on the team 2 years ago. And I think that kind of goes to show you have the veteran quarterback who can execute a game plan that you're putting out there. But just more props to Kevin Stefanski, who we've talked about personally. I think Kevin Stefanski, I know he's on the Browns, but I truly think he's at worst a top 10 mind in the NFL in terms of head coaches. That is. I'm definitely biased. I would say
you guys cannot run him out. No matter what you do and how delusional the fan base gets, you guys cannot run that guy out.
Because the thing is as delusional as the Browns fan base is, it's because they're passionate as hell. And the thing is I blame the media more than I blame the fans, because the media gaslight the fuck out of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that don't pay attention enough or don't really know what's going on eat up that shit. They're like, yeah, why aren't we winning games? It has to be the head coach, because that's my favorite player. He obviously wouldn't be in the wrong, because fans generally take the sides of players, not coaches. And that's why they've been running guys out of town so fast in the past, which when you look back at it, not a lot of those coaches really turned out to be anything. Really, the only one you look at since they came back, it's pretty much Belichick, because I'm pretty sure Schottenheimer was towards the end. So it's there's not a lot of guys. But this guy, I mean, there's jokes about winning Coach of the Year twice when some guys haven't won it. You win Coach of the Year because you exceed expectations. And this guy is the king at exceeding expectations. Last year, they won 2 games with quarterbacks that many aren't even on rosters this year. DTR, gone.
Maybe the worst quarterback play the league's ever seen.
Not playing.
Not even kidding.
I mean, some of the worst. Jameis Winston, as electric as he is to watch, worst guy to be a fan of, because just the level of difference between play to play is hard to follow. So, I mean, I think that's where you look at this game and you're like, I'm super excited to see how Flacco brings along, because even if we wouldn't, I know everybody's claiming for the rookies to get in, whether it's Gabriel or Sanders, wherever you stand on that. But Flacco, I think what proved in this game is there's an element where Flacco can take along some of these rookies, maybe potentially more than those guys can, because he can deliver the ball. Because I would argue Sampson and Fannin were our two best offensive players. And I mean, and that's saying something. They were clearly the most targeted guys. Sampson has the most touches with 20, and Fannin has 8, which is the second most. So the guys with 2 most touches are a 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick. So I think there's got to be some kudos to Andrew Berry here too, because this is a man who I'm not giving as much of a pass as Stefanski, but he's been someone who's done fairly solid in his time in Cleveland. but he has the ghost of Deshaun Watson trade lingering over him, which it's pretty evident at this point the owner forced. So at the end of the day, it's a guy who was willing to make a trade. Obviously, he's got to sign off on it too. I think Watson probably wasn't the target, but I think they kind of had their hands tied around their back when Baker wasn't coming back and Russell Wilson said no. So they had to do something, and Jimmy wanted Deshaun. So at the end of the day, the guy's been willing to take swings. He's been a master at manipulating the cap, the carryover cap space, something that many teams aren't even aware of and don't do. Going into this season, the Browns there was talk of, how much cap space the Browns have. Deshaun Watson's contract, if you minused it, the Browns, I believe, had more cap space that was able to be used, not available cap space, but the space that they could have on it was greater than the Bills if you took off $50 million. Because of all the carryover cap they've had, that they have the ability to sign so much more because of all that cap that they've carried over in the past. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of dick sucking of the Browns for a loss, but I think it's one of those things where sometimes Browns fans just have to sit back and say, yes, we lost, but what did we see in the game? We saw the youngest players on our team were shining as bright as anybody on the team. Myles Garrett, 2 sacks. Denzel Ward, great game. The elite players on the team had elite games. You lose because of field goal kicking and big drops due to the game plan of not having a lot of possessions. I don't know what it ended up being, but both teams probably had, 7 or 8 possessions?
Yeah, probably.
So when you're limiting possessions, those drops increase tenfold. But there's my tirade on it. I went a little insane there, but it's one of those things that's like the game gave me a lot of – it was, as I was saying before, it was the typical Browns. It gave an insane amount of hope for what this Browns team can be. Maybe not necessarily this year acting like they're winning a Super Bowl or anything, but there's a lot of fucking talent on this team that I don't think they're as far away as they should be being a 2-win team, like you said. There's a lot of pieces there. I think the defense is a top 5 defense. I think they have one of the best secondaries. I think if guys like McGuire produce like they did, this past week, the sky's the limit is for this defense. So if the offense has any competence at all, which it did a lot this past week and why it's so damn frustrating, then this team could do something interesting. And the interesting thing could be ruining someone else's playoff chances. But I think they could be having an impact on the NFL. Whether that's making the playoffs, I'm not going to act like I'm saying that. But I'm more so saying, they're playing the Ravens in Baltimore this week. They beat them last year. I know they're big dogs. I don't think it's that crazy to say they go into Baltimore and could potentially win that game.
I mean, no, they
don't think it's that crazy.
They were one of their 2 wins last year. That's not crazy to say. But do you factor in the fact when you talk about the offense that the Bengals had a bottom 5 defense last year?
It's definitely, it definitely matters. But at the end of the day, it has to matter more what we're doing than what the other team's doing. Yes, it's easier to execute a game plan when you're playing against the Bengals. Won't argue with that at all. But I'm not going to be bitching and moaning about executing a game plan no matter who the team is. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Grambling State thing for Ohio State. It's like some people would be like, oh, you beat a team 70-0. Who cares? You held a team to 0 points and you scored 70. You did good things. Obviously, it's not the same level as that because they didn't win. And they made mistakes that caused them to lose. But there's a lot to take away from this game to be like, there's some studs on this team. Sampson, I'm not saying is Alvin Kamara, but in terms of the receiving game, there was a lot of similarities on things he was doing. He's not a big guy, but he was, which, I mean, again, could potentially be partially Bengals, but wasn't an easy guy to tackle, and he was making a lot of guys miss. So, we'll find out this week how much of that was the Bengals and how much of that was Dylan Sampson. But anytime you're seeing rookies featured in week one that much, I feel like there's a long way we can go in terms of having these guys start to carry. So there's my tirade.
I definitely agree. I think that the young guys like Fannin, Sampson, like I think I tweeted this week, I didn't notice Mason Graham at all, but I also said, like I was genuinely asking, did he play? But he plays a position that doesn't always get recognized. So it sounds like from what I've seen on the Brown side of things, he did play really well. I saw the video after the fact that he got the third of the 3 consecutive sacks. So, yeah, I mean, the Browns, I think, have a lot to be excited about when it comes to the young guys. I think Sampson and I think Fannin, I think Graham, and I think Schwessinger, whatever his name is. Like, I think all those guys are going to be good players in the NFL. I think Mason Graham's going to be an all-pro. Anyways, I think there were a lot to be positive about, but for me personally, I'm just not high on the Bengals defense. I don't think that they're a very good unit. I think they are improved. They have a lot of new faces on that defense, a lot of new young talent. When you want to talk about new guys that have kind of stepped in, like Shamar Stewart was the second highest graded player on the entire defense. Like, that dude has done nothing but just surprise people on how well he's played since he's been in a Bengal uniform and gotten his contract done. I think Dylan Fairchild, the guy that played left guard, I probably had a little bit of a rough first start, but he had a phenomenal preseason. I think that the Bengals have some younger guys that they've brought in too that are going to flash and are going to provide something to them this year. The last part I want to hit on before we move on to Ohio State is you've seen this through, I'll just call it Joe Burrow's tenure with the Bengals. So minus a year that he had the knee surgery, like every single year he's kind of been coming off some sort of injury. First year, the Super Bowl year, the knee. And then after that, it was the appendix. And then after that, it was his calf. And then after that, last year, it was his wrist. Like, this was the first year that you're like, him, Jamar, T, they can spend the entire offseason together practicing. They're all out there. No contract shit. No injuries. Everybody's good and ready to go. But you still saw a slow offense in week one. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the Browns having a top 5 defense, if not the best defense in all of the NFL. But my point is, I'm questioning if the reason why this Bengals defense or offense has started so slow, in particular the past 2 years, I think the first 3 years of that, in 21, 22, and 23, I think the Bengals defense was good those years. Obviously, you went to the Super Bowl, you went to the AFC Championship, and then you were 6-3, and Burrow fucked up his wrist. Like, you were probably well on your way to get into the playoffs, if not go to another AFC Championship that third year. After that year, you had some guys leave on that defense. So I question if the Bengals offense has started slow the past 2 years. Is it because they're just practicing against dog shit all through spring training? Like, they're not seeing anybody worth a shit until week one. I mean, it's a viable, thing to consider. Like, the Patriots last year, they were not a good football team, but I think they had probably, if you would look up the defensive rankings in the NFL, I would guess they were probably somewhere in the middle. So, respectable, especially when your offense isn't firing on all cylinders. And then you go in this year and you go against arguably the best defense in football. I wonder if part of the reason why this team is starting so slow is because they're basically just running routes on air, doing whatever they want all through spring training. And then they finally get to a defense that's worth a fuck. And it's like, whoa, we haven't seen this since last year. And that's why it takes them a couple weeks to get going. I don't know if that's the case. I know that the Bengals offense requires a lot of timing. Burrow is Not a guy like Mahomes or not a guy like Allen where they kind of just sit in the pocket, move around. Like Burrow is a 1-2-3, hit the back foot, get the ball out. Like it's a very on time, on schedule offense. He's always been that way. It's all how he played at LSU. That's how he's played in the Bengals. So it just takes a little bit more time, I think, for just everything to come together when you consider the Bengals offense. But the points aside, like you clearly do not start fast. So hopefully this week, maybe the facing the Browns defense and facing that physicality, facing that kind of just the talent and the physicality even on the edge for Jamar and T and that kind of thing. Maybe that will help this week as they get in to play the Jaguars, who have a pretty weak secondary. I think this is a good week for them to kind of start hitting on all cylinders. But aside from that, I don't know if Zach Taylor is it when it comes in terms of just being a play caller or I think he's a fine head coach. I think the players rally around him, but I just always question his play calling. Jamar had 2 catches, T had like 3, and like not once did you really send them in motion, get the ball to them in the backfield, like put Jamar in the slot, get him lined up on a backer or a safety. Like you didn't really do any kind of creativity, and it just seems like he does this like it takes him like a few weeks. Oh yeah, we probably should start moving Jamar around and finding different ways to get him the ball. I don't know. It's just like I see the same shit I've seen. Like I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. Like you have Joe Burrow, you have Jamar Chase, you have T, yada 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 yada. You hear it all the fucking time. Like I'm excited. They're gonna probably win at least 9 games just because they have those 3 guys. But it's like I want to get back to the Super Bowl. I want to get back to the AFC Championship. I don't want to do this like dumb shit they've done like last year. Like last year was that one of those years. I see it coming maybe a little bit better this year. Maybe they win 10 games. Maybe they squeak out a way and have the ball bounce the right way like it did in the Browns game and they can get to 11. I don't know. But this isn't a championship unit. This isn't a championship defense. I don't know if it's a championship team. Aside from that, Norm, you got anything, last comments on the Browns or the Bengals?
Just for your Joe Burrow comment, or just his, like, I feel like the archetype, he's like the Tom Brady archetype. And then when you're looking at the Patrick Mahomeses of the world, that's like your John Elway or Steve Young types, like moving the pocket, letting things open up. You open up things yourself. And I think that's the archetype that's a little easier to see success faster because you have guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who can do things themselves. Obviously, they're good enough to kind of sit in the pocket too, but a lot of times those guys are elite when they're able to move the pocket a little bit or get outside the pocket and have those, have the defense worried about them using their legs. So I think for the guys like Burrow, which is, I'm not saying Burrow can't move. I feel like he's kind of underrated athletic, but the guys like him are wired to try to figure out where they're throwing before the play and then having the defense tell them who they should throw to. So I think a little bit of that is just him also getting used to, how people are playing him. Because I feel like when you're a player like him, people kind of got to come up with new shit all the time. Because you're dialed into, to what your weaknesses are. Because you think Joe Burrow isn't working on, what people were fucking him up with the year before. Well, people are coming up with something else to, so obviously not specifics on that. But I think that's part of it too. Like, I mean, I think the defensive thing's kind of a funny way to look at it, but I don't think it's the craziest thing. But I do think a lot of it actually has to do with the timing side of the offense and how, the timing isn't necessarily going to be on right away just because as much as you practice, nothing like full speed is full speed. Like even when you're going against another team, like, or even when you're going up against your team, like there's just a level. It's not a game. Like, that's why I think those like inter squads, like practice scrimmage things that happen now are huge and really good. Cause I feel like teams are starting to get a little bit more prepared faster. I don't know how. I mean, I wasn't tuned into what the Bengals or if they did any of that, but I know the Browns did that this year, and I think I think it prepped them better defensively because I know they went against the Eagles. So I think they're a little bit more ready because I think readiness is something that doesn't really get talked about enough because no one plays in the preseason like no one's playing a lot of snaps in the preseason because people are more worried about you being healthy than like, all right, you better get playing for this preseason game. Like no one cares like that. So I just think it's an interesting thing to look at where it's like, I think it has a lot more to do with the timing than like, and I don't think I think play calling could have opened things up a little bit more too, because like as much as I was bitching about the Michigan side of things, like them just throwing screens and obvious downs and things like that, they don't have Jamar Chase, a guy where you just throw him the ball and he'll probably make a play, like so, or even like T. Higgins, which the Browns didn't. I mean, I just recall one play specifically where there was kind of like a jump ball to T. Higgins and the guy made over and made a play because I think Joe thought he had a little more time than he did. Just put air on a ball and said, throw it up to T. He'll high point it. Gave the guy a little time to knock it out. But,
yeah.
So, like, just things like that, I feel like they could have done more because, I mean, as much as the Browns secondary is great, there's ways to get guys the ball. Like, it's – and like you said, I didn't think there was enough creativity to do it. Obviously, they win, so they get away with it. But another thing that I feel like we talked about a lot on the day of the game was the Bengals were kind of running the ball all over the Browns to start the game. And it felt like they kind of got away from it.
They got away from it.
Unknown reasons. So that I didn't really understand either. But the thing is for getting away from the run game, they weren't really passing well. So it just didn't really make sense. And I think, like you said, I think a little bit of it had to do with, the Browns defense, but I don't think it was all of them. I think play calling.
Like we talked about this too. I want to move on to Ohio State, but real quick. We talked about this too. Like Zach Taylor is good at putting together a game plan, but whenever that game plan isn't going as planned, he's not good at making adjustments. So I'm sure his game plan was not to go in there and say, hey, we're going to run the ball, I don't know, 25, 30 times with Chase Brown. I'm sure he had a game plan to go out there like, hey, we're going to establish a run in the first drive, and then after that, we're going to start hitting them with our weapons through the air. He got into that game plan of trying to put the ball in the air, and it really wasn't working because the Browns have a really good pass rush and really good DBs. And again, you're not where you will be here in probably 2 or 3 weeks with the offense. So I don't know how much of it was that where the game plan was to spread the ball out to your talent, which don't get me wrong, it's a good game plan. Probably a good decision to try to get the ball to Jamar and T. But he just doesn't really ever seem to have the ability when the game plan that he put together isn't really working. He can't really figure something out or adjust at all. Any last comments on Browns Bengals, Norm?
The last thing I'll say is I think the thing that's evident with that was the second half stats of having 7 yards in the second half.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, like I said, I feel like I've done nothing but bitch through this segment. 1-0. That's all I've been telling myself all week. Last year, if the Bengals could have had a game, they've had probably 5 of their 7 losses that were just absolutely gut-wrenching, just bullshit stuff that happened down the stretch that they lost. They didn't win any of these games last year. They won it in week 1. They're 1-0 for the first time in like 5 years or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to take 1-0. Yes, I have my worries. I worry about the defense. I'm not worried about the offense one bit. They're going to figure it out. Like, that will be fine. But we're 1-0. Didn't look pretty. You always take wins in the National Football League. On to Ohio State. Ohio State defeats Grambling State 70-0 on Saturday. Julian Sand, absolute dog, out there to complete his first 15 passes, finished with an 18 of 19 passes to completions, 306 yards, 4 touchdowns. Bo Jackson broke out, had 9 carries for 108 yards, along with probably a 40 or 50-yard carry. C.J. Donaldson, 5 carries for 45 yards. Not a bad 9 yards per carry. Carnell Tate had an absolutely nutty catch in the corner of the end zone. Aside from that, I have a couple questions on there in the bottom that I want to get to, but just as the game as a whole, I thought it was a really good opportunity to get Julian Sands' feet wet. It was good for him to kind of open the offense up, spread the ball around a little bit, and you can see the kid has arm talent. And when I say arm talent, it's not like a Bryce Underwood type arm talent. It's the ability to put the ball literally wherever he wants. He's got it, really good footwork, really good accuracy. He's clearly a very smart quarterback in terms of just decision-making and where he goes with the ball. Very rarely ever puts the ball in harm's way. And the one interception that he had on the goal line, I think that was the one pass that I've seen him, even through Texas, even through Grambling State. If you watch that play over with, what he was anticipating or throwing, you could tell he kind of froze a little bit, or he kind of flinched, I guess the better word is. I think he was trying to go for a slant over the middle, flinched, and then he's like, oh, I got my guy heading to the pylon on the backside, threw it late, and then that's where the interception came from. Obviously, I don't think the interception's a bad thing. Whenever guys make mistakes, it's teaching moments. Luckily, it was against Grambling State when they won 70-0, but it's good to see him still make some mistakes like that. It's good teaching moments and good things to put on tape that Ryan Day, the coaching staff, guys like that they can work with him on moving forward. What'd you see from Ohio State Saturday, Norm?
I just to continue with that. I thought it was just one of those, like, it was such a hard throw to begin with, and you could tell he didn't really want to do it, and then he's like, "Yep, fuck it, I'm doing it," and it was a long ass throw. And
I mean, could you blame the guy? He had completed 15 straight passes before that, so it's kind of like, I'm throwing a ball out into the ocean right now, and they're going in. Yeah,
so it's like. So I think that kind of played a role in it. It's like, yeah, fuck it. Like, this feels good. And it's like, well, that ball was never getting there. I mean, it was such a long throw. There was so much air under it. Like, the DB had an hour to get under that ball. I mean, it's just a tough throw. I mean, even if he's setting to throw to that guy immediately, like without the flinch, that's going to be a tough throw. Maybe makes it in that circumstance, but I mean, I'm not going to harp on that. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, when we've looked at his game, like, I mean, we're 2-2 games, but I feel like he makes great decisions. He puts the ball where it needs to be. And he just kind of, like, it's not that there's a lot of explosiveness, from a passing game. Like, obviously, that's probably partially due to it being early in the season. But I think a lot of that has to do with it's just like it kind of goes to the Burrow of processing. Like, what's going to be there? Mm-hmm. That's there, throw it. And when you're Ohio State, guys are getting open pretty fast. So just in terms of reads, but I think there's just an element to it of it's like he hasn't done anything. Like, the interception was the only thing that I've ever seen that was like, oh boy. But the thing is like, it's more so of him feeling himself, like you said, and then just making a very long throw that, that was going to be difficult to make. But I mean, you kind of posed the question when, like, comparing to like a CJ Stroud. I think for like the beginning of CJ Stroud's career versus the beginning of Julian Sands' career, I feel like Julian Sands looked a lot more polished than what CJ Stroud did. I mean, and that's saying a lot because, I mean, I just recall, I mean, people were pretty upset with CJ Stroud pretty early on. If we recall the Oregon game, there's some throws in the Minnesota game. There was a lot of talk about why is CJ Stroud missing high, and some things like that, which I don't know if it was necessarily a mechanics issue or, just being a little puppy, but obviously.
Even, like, to go beyond that, they played Akron week 3, and CJ didn't even play. They called it some kind of injury, but after the fact that you've heard now, just guys that are around the program, it sounds like it was more so like Ryan Day being like, I'm going to give him a week off, and I really want to see if, like, CJ wants this or not. because it was a struggle. Okay, not a struggle. Like, I don't want to be that guy that would just like CJ sucked. Like, he didn't suck, but there was definitely some things that he left on the field that were left a lot to be desired, I guess you could say, in certain situations those first couple weeks. And then I think, again, like Ryan Day just kind of questioned how bad does he actually want this. Obviously, that week off, I think, was probably the best thing that ever happened to CJ, and came back out the fourth week, and the rest is history. He's in the NFL, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL now. But I agree with you. I think Julian Sand has kind of gotten off to a better foot than what C.J. Stroud does. But he reminds me a lot of Burrow, getting the ball out quick, like kind of like that timing type quarterback that you were talking about. And then the accuracy of like C.J. Stroud. Like the guy is a ball placement specialist, put the ball basically wherever the hell he wants, where only his guy can get it. He's got that kind of accuracy and that kind of ability.
Yeah, so I mean, and the thing is like guys like that, generally it takes time. So I feel like that's what gets me very excited about him, is just where he's at now and where he could end up being. Like, I think the sky's the limit with this guy. I mean, this offense is only going to get better as he meshes with his receivers, and so I mean, going back to the Ryan Day talk to start it off, like I believe in the back-to-back, man. Like, I believe before the Texas game, we talked about how we felt good about, in that Texas game, winning that with the defense and whatnot. But I feel like the offense, if they continually, make steps and make strides and keep developing, I think that's just going to fall in line with how it went last year with the offense clicking in the playoffs. Defense kind of carried them along. And then here we are, sitting, in the national championship game with us playing our best football. Like, obviously, that's a lot of weeks away, and there's a lot between that. But in terms of what we've seen on the field thus far, like, it's been just a polished quarterback play. I would say okay running game. I would say that's the one thing that you could point to pretty easily that's not as good as last year. I'm not going to put a lot of stock into the Grambling State game for that. Obviously, Bo Jackson looked really good. I don't know if that necessarily means he's going to be getting more snaps with first
Did you hear
guys.
What Jeremiah said?
No.
He basically said that boy needs more carries.
And that's, I mean, anytime you're putting up 100 yards and 9 carries, it doesn't really matter who it's against. Like, it should at least turn eyes and turn heads. But at the end of the day, we'll see what ends up coming from that. But I think from the running back standpoint, that's the one thing I'd point to. Still see some guys developing there, but I mean, I feel like receivers have been solid. Carnell Tate feels like he's been, taking that next step. I mean, Jeremiah's Jeremiah, not something I'm ever going to worry about. And then I feel like the defense is just flying around. Secondary, been as good as it was week one. Just staying solid, making the right play. I know early on Grambling State's quarterback had a lot of completions, but I think that was kind of by Ohio State's design. Like, we're just not going to get beat. Like, go complete a pass, we'll wrap up, tackle. We're not worried about that. And I think that's a fine game plan to have, especially like in teams that you're better than. It's like, all right, wrap up and tackle, and these guys, they're not going to beat you. They need big plays to beat you. So I think I foresee that as kind of the game plan again this week. I think Ohio has obviously a way higher chance of having a big play than Grambling State. They've, obviously they just beat West Virginia. They had a tough loss to Rutgers that they, arguably should have won. So, I mean, and obviously I'm not comparing us to those teams. But I mean, it just shows they're a scrappy enough team that they'd like to make it interesting. But if the first 2 weeks tell us anything, I think we see poised quarterback play. Maybe we see the ball trying to hit the ground even more, just trying to, just get guys more touches. I mean, obviously Donaldson only getting 5. Even Bo Jackson getting 9. I don't know what Peoples' number was, but it wasn't a ton of carries either. So I could see maybe potential feed from there just for confidence sake. But I'm interested to see how they take the Ohio game. Because I feel like I'm not going to completely fall off of what I've said about repeat or being this potential dynasty team. But I think if they throw a stinker out against Ohio, it'll make me question it a tad, just because of we don't want to start you don't want to start tasting your own success where it's taking over, especially in these small games, because that carries over. And we seen plenty of upsets last week, so it's like you're not immune to losing to anybody just because you're Ohio State, And I don't think that could be a mindset they can ever have.
I think it's like, it's regardless of opponent, you show up every week and kick the shit out of whoever you're playing. I think that's whenever you go from being a great to an elite football team, an elite football program, and even just like a mature football team. Like, they have a lot of guys that they played roles last year, but they weren't the guy last year. So I think that it goes a long way where if you come out and just dominate Ohio, like, that this team is laser focused, no matter who the opponent is, they're focused on whatever the game is, going out there and performing and ultimately dominating, because they are far better than about anybody and everybody that they're going to play this year. Are you a little surprised, Norm, by the lack of production that we've seen out of James Peoples and Max Clare to this point? I think that those were both of us, I think those were two guys we were pretty high on going into the year. I personally thought James Peoples was going to be RB1. He's clearly not. That's definitely CJ Donaldson up to this point. I clearly thought that Max Clare was going to be tight end 1. I'm not exactly sure if he is either. I think Will Kazmarek had obviously that really long touchdown catch this week. He's a really good blocker. Jelani Thurman was like the highest rated player in all of college football last year per PFF. Take that for however much you value PFF, but still the kid played very well. And I want to say there's another one in there too that I am just forgetting about right now. But do you think that did you expect a little bit more out of those two? And before you answer, I do want to say I don't know if you saw Ryan Day's press conference yesterday. He did talk a little bit about Max Clare and said like he's going to end up being really good for us, but he was at Purdue where he's not going up against NFL players basically on a day-to-day basis, where you come here to Ohio State, you're playing the best of the best in the entire country. So from a physicality standpoint, he kind of mentioned some things that Max Clare had some adjusting to do once he got to Columbus. So I'll stop talking. What do you think? Did you expect more out of those two, and where do you see their season going the next 10 games through the regular season?
I think Clare is the one that I think I was because as I'm looking at Peoples, I mean, last game, 8 for 59. I mean, solid. I mean, I know it's Grambling State again, but pretty similar to the other guys. Also, I mean, I think that's partially why he got more touches than Donaldson. I think there's probably just an element of he just needs more carries. If you look at last year, he had 49 carries the entire season. So I think Peoples makes more sense just from a slow start perspective. So I'm not entirely worried about him. I think Clare would be the guy I would be more worried about. I was expecting a lot right away just because of his age and experience. Playing 2 seasons before. I thought I would hit the ground running a little faster with him. I think the comments almost come as obvious to us now, because it's like, I mean, clearly there's some adjusting to do if he's not being featured immediately, because he feels like someone that would be just because of his experience, He's had production before. So I think there's and then the thing is you can't really say it's a tight end feature issue because you're seeing Thurman and I don't know how to pronounce Kakmarak, or that's what I call him. So we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
But you're seeing those guys making plays. And it's like, well, where's Max Clare? So I think he's more surprising than Peoples to me. And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I'm necessarily worried because if Claire's not it, I don't think it will matter because I feel like we've seen solid things from both Thurman and Kakmark. So, I mean, Peoples, I feel like will need more going down the stretch because as much as I've liked what I've seen from Donaldson so far, I just feel like Peoples just at the end of the day has to be the feature back. I just feel like he's the one of the three. I mean, and that's even just seeing Bo shining a little bit, which maybe Bo takes over. I'm not sure on that, but we'll see. I would love to see it. But I think at the end of the day, I think Peoples, I feel like I'll be all right. And Claire, I think will ultimately be fine. I think Ryan Day saying it publicly is kind of honestly, it's more so saying it publicly to be like, hey, I hope you guys know that that's why. Like, yeah. I want you guys to know like that's why he's not producing right now. So that tells me there's belief within the team, because it's not really like a coach cliche answer to be like, I feel like that'd be normally what you'd hear, like, oh, other guys, got involved, blah, blah, blah. It just, didn't come to happen with game plan and all that. I feel like him kind of addressing it directly tells a lot more of like, he's just got some work to do, and that's perfectly fine. It's early in the season. When we'll need him, he'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say whether it's Ohio State or basically any team we've talked about, we're still in a little bit of overreaction season, I would say. Like, this is a long, long, long season ahead. A lot of these guys that we've talked about still have 10 regular season games to play. Some of them probably have a conference championship to play, and then you'll get into the postseason. So last year, Ohio State played 16 games. I don't think through 2 games you were making assumptions on some of these guys that ended up performing down the stretch last year. I think after 2 games last year, Will Howard, many people had wondered if we were ever going to win a national championship with Will Howard. There's a lot of things and a lot of development and just things that can happen between now and the end of the season where I think a guy that is of the talent in Max Clare, like Ohio State went out and got him for a reason. He was the number 1 rated player in the transfer portal for a reason. I think that he's going to figure it out. Like, he's definitely still adjusting, like Ryan Day alluded to. But I think just getting more familiar with the offense, he's probably coming around physicality-wise. I think that he'll be fine. You'll probably start to see flashes of him more here in the next few weeks. And that is why I said if the books will offer it this week, my bet that I like as much as I like the first half under of the Ohio State-Texas game is for Max Clare to score this week. I think there's going to be more of a conceded effort to try to get him more involved in the offense and really try to get him in the end zone and build some confidence so they can start to get him more utilized and get him more confidence just going into further along into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense, and this would be as good as any game to do it. As much as Ohio's scrappy, they're not exactly the defensive powerhouse. So it feels like that's kind of the team you should kind of have that game plan for, to kind of get him more adjusted and starting to make some plays.
On a final note, before we move on, unless you've got anything else, this Ohio State line has started out at 33.5, and it's now dropped to 30.5. So public's loving Ohio this week. Any last comments or anything you want to hit on Ohio State-wise before we get to your picks, Norm?
No, sir. I think we covered it.
All righty, in the final segment of the night, Norm's picks are back. Tough start to the year, 2-7 last week. I'm in the middle of moving right now, so I didn't have the internet source that I typically have. Last week, we tried to do a show. The internet, the place I was at was not up to the quality of what it needed to be to do a show. So we unfortunately weren't able to get a show or get picks out to you. But we're back this week. Norm's got 8 picks for you on the docket. First, Clemson. Number 12, Clemson. On the road, favored as 3.5-point favorites on the road at Georgia Tech. Norm, why are you going with the Tigers here?
2 reasons. The first, Clemson's second half was the Clemson. It felt like a wake up from Clemson. I was watching the game live. The defense was kind of dialed the entire time. Offense just felt like it woke up a little bit. They're hitting some deep passes and whatnot. So I think the offense waking up a little bit was huge for this game. I think it's partially a sleepwalk before a conference game. We see it a lot in college. And then I think the second thing is Clemson kind of owns Georgia Tech. You go back to the history of these two teams. Here, let me pull up the last couple years of this little rivalry here. Well, if you want to call it that. So, last year, Clemson 42-21. The year before, 41-10. The year before, 14-8. The year before, 73-7. The year before, 42-14. AKA,
a lot of blowouts.
Clemson kind of owns Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech, pretty similar team as like a lot of the main guys are the same as last year. I know it was in Clemson where they won by 20. But this being 3 points, even at Clemson's worst that they've played in the past 5 years, was a 14-8 win. So to me, I mean, this is a trends writer here. Clemson, I feel like, has to just start to dial in because of the reason we were talking about before. The ACC is what matters to them. They win the ACC, nothing else matters. They lose to South Carolina at the end of the year, it doesn't matter. So ACC games matter. They're the games that give them the playoff and hand it to them for free. So this is a game that I think they're going to be dialed for. It's a noon game, so I think it takes a little bit of away from it being at Georgia Tech. And I just don't think Georgia Tech's a team that is going to, be able to hang with Clemson for 48 minutes. I think it's because of the defense. I think Georgia Tech could sneak some scoring here and there. But I just think the Clemson defense takes care of them too much. Because I just don't foresee that. I think they'd have to drop 30 points in this game to beat Clemson, to be quite honest. And I know Clemson's offense hasn't really shown much like they haven't scored 30 themselves this year, but it just feels like Clemson's going to drop 27 points. And for Georgia Tech to cover this, they'd have to drop 24. And I just don't see it. Neither team that Clemson played this year scored 20 points. One of them was LSU, who's a pretty dang good team themselves. So I just think the defense carries them through here. Offense will do enough to get the cover.
I agree. I like it. I think Clemson definitely had a wake-up call at halftime last week against Troy, and I think that that's what they needed to kind of start hitting the ground running because they are definitely one of the more talented teams in college football. So I like the pick, regardless if it is on the road. On to the next one. Number 18, USF. Ruining some seasons here early in the early part of the season. Downs Boise State big week 1. Downs Florida in the swamp week 2. Norm's liking them, plus 17.5 at number 5, Miami, who got after Notre Dame. Carson Beck looked a little bit more like himself. That defensive line for Miami looked nasty. Tore up Notre Dame's offensive line. Tell me why you like the 17.5 for USF.
To me, I know this is a trap line. There's a reason it's this big again. They played a tough game. It's hard to play back-to-back tough games. But to me, this just feels like, the defense has looked good. Their offense features a quarterback that, I have a lot of respect for in terms of his ability to run. I feel like he's been doing better this year in terms of being able to manage the offense. And Brown, he's just a power dude. The Boise game, there's a lot of, Q runs. The Florida game, I didn't see as much of. I watched a lot of the end of the game, but I just feel like I don't think USF wins this game by any means, but to me, I feel like their defense takes care of business enough. I mean, Miami, as much as their offense looked great in the first half, it stepped off the gas in that second half against Notre Dame. And I felt like Notre Dame did play extremely conservative in the first half. So I think if they're maybe a little more aggressive, that they might be even winning that game. So I think the two things of USF, I think, is a legitimately good team. And then Miami, I'm not sold on in terms of being this powerhouse playoff team that I feel like everybody's crowning them to be so far. I think this is going to be a game that, if they win by 20 points, I'll probably come back and say, all right, this Miami team is legitimate. But at this point, I'm not ready to give them that pass. I think this game, probably they win like, maybe 24-14, something like that. So that would cover the points.
I like it. 17.5 is a lot of points. You got a team that's knocked off two ranked teams to this point, so they have a little bit of confidence going in here as well. I like the 17.5. On to the next one. Florida Gators. We spent the early part of this show shitting on their quarterback, shitting on their head coach. They are traveling to number 3 LSU as 7.5-point dogs on the road, going to Death Valley. Norm is taking the points here. Talk us through this one.
This is your typical. I was saying that their loss was due to it being a look-ahead game. Well, if you're going to have a look-ahead game, you better wake the fuck up for it. I think their season's on the line. I think LSU is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. They got their big win. I know this is a big game for them as well, but it just feels like this game's going to come down to the wire. Whether that's a game-winning field goal, whether it's a game-winning touchdown, either way, 7.5 points gets you there. This is a Billy Napier legacy game. This is a DJ Lagway straighten the ship out game. I think Florida is a good team that sleptwalked through a different good team they're a great team that slept through a good team and lost. So I think they can step up to the plate, go into Baton Rouge and cover this 7.5 points. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. It just feels like a game that, we're going to be tuned into. It's going to come down to the end. And I think I would take LSU to come out with the dub, but I think Florida's going to keep this one close.
If this was 6.5, are you still taking Florida? Or are you taking it because of the touchdown cushion you have?
I think that I don't like it. I think I still take it. I don't like it as much.
Gotcha.
I think the touchdown cushion is huge.
That's 7.5. That's more.
A little less.
That's more than like a point. Like it, you feel like you're getting almost a couple extra points with the 7.5 there.
Right. Like it's essentially another possession, no matter what happens. Yeah. They have two. They have to go down two possessions, 2 scores. And at the end of the day, I think the Florida defense is good as well. So I mean, the fact that their defense is good, there's not going to be a lot of points scored in the game. So I just think it's going to come down to the wire. And at the end of the day, the game coming down to the wire suits Florida covering 7.5 points.
On to the next one. Number 16, Texas A&M, traveling to South Bend to take on number 8, Notre Dame. Notre Dame minus 6.5. Norm's taking the home favorites. CJ Carr and company looking to bounce back after a tough loss to Miami 2 weeks ago. They had a bye going into this one. A little bit more time to get some more prep, figure out what the heck happened against Miami, and really get things right. Talk us through why you're taking the Irish.
I think you explained a lot right there. I think the bye week is huge. They can focus on what they did wrong against Miami, and I think a part of that was aggressiveness. I think when they started opening it up, I know Miami was playing a little bit conservative defensively as well, which opened it up for them, but I think Notre Dame has a semi-decent passing attack. I think it's actually better than last year.
For
they
sure.
Bring back pretty much all their receivers, and Carr's a better passer than Leonard is.
I've been saying that all offseason.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of training wheels they had on them that I'm not sure they necessarily should have had if you're playing him in a Miami game. It's similar to what I was talking about Underwood in the Oklahoma game. If he's your starting quarterback in a big game, you can't have the training wheels on so long because that's how you lose. They went down big, they took him off, he brings them back, and they still lose because they didn't get the ball last after they made the big comeback. I don't think they make this mistake against A&M. I think A&M is a sneaky dark horse playoff team. But at the end of the day, I think they're always a sneaky dark horse playoff team, and I just think Notre Dame's in a tier above them, and they need to win more than Texas A&M does because we were talking about this personally too. Notre Dame loses this game, they got a tough road ahead to be able to make the playoff. I'm not sure they win out that they're guaranteed to be in. They win this game and maybe lose one down the road and then win out. I think there's a higher chance they're in just based on, I think quality of wins matters nowadays, and I think this is their quality win they need. They lost their other one. They need to go 1-1 in them. They're going to be prepared. This feels like a game they win by 10. Extend the game late in the game to kind of get that 2 scores. So I think the 6.5 is what I'll take that here.
Yeah, and I think Marcus Freeman is starting to get himself into the kind of that level of coach where you just know what you're going to get, and you feel like that you can trust him getting his team to rally and respond. So I like that too. I like Notre Dame at home. Obviously, opening game of the year too. Those Irish fans, they're going to be all fired up. You got them late at night as well. That's going to be a tough one for Texas A&M to come out on top at the end. On to the NFL. The Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns, 12.5-point underdogs, road underdogs. Norm's taking the Browns. You hit on this a little bit earlier whenever we talked about the Browns, but talk me through this one.
So really this is just too many points. Quite simply, the Browns defense is elite. I know the Ravens offense is also elite, so I think that'll be a great battle to watch in itself. But I think at the end of the day, this is a game the Browns probably inevitably lose late, maybe by 10 points, maybe something like that, where the Ravens kind of take control. But I don't foresee this being a blowout. I don't think the Ravens defense is quite locked in. I know it's against the Bills, but there was definitely some things that I feel like the Browns could potentially take advantage of themselves with, the lack of stars that the Bills would have. But I think this game's just a lot closer than 12.5 points. I know it's in Baltimore. I know that, the Ravens are a potential Super Bowl team against the Browns who won 2 games last year. But I think the Browns have proven time and time again that they generally play division teams well. And I think they'll prove that again. We talked about the Browns winning 2 games last year. Their 2 wins came against teams in the AFC North. So I think they definitely get up for the division games. And I think this is no different. So I'll be taking the 12.5.
Yeah, I feel like the Browns honestly match up pretty well with all the teams in the AFC North. I mean, you're going to match up with everybody really well whenever you have the defense that they have. But 12.5 points feels like a lot against, like I've said a couple times in this episode, arguably the best defense in the NFL, if not the best, 100% top 5. They always seem like they give the Ravens issues, like you said. So 12.5 is a lot in the NFL, regardless of how good or how bad one team is over the other. At the end of the day, they're all professionals. They are the best football players on the planet. That's why you see a lot more competitiveness in the NFL than you do college football. Whenever you have a really good team playing a really bad team, there's not as much of a talent gap there. So I like it. I'm with it. On to your next one, the Atlanta Falcons, plus 3.5 on the road. Loving the road teams this week, Norm, at the Minnesota Vikings. So we saw J.J. McCarthy struggle in the first half on Monday night. Complete opposite in the second half. Bounce back for 2 touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown. Why are you not following J.J. McCarthy after he settled in and looked so good in the second half on Monday? Why the Falcons?
This just feels like I think this is also another example of that hook, that 3.5. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this one comes down to the wire, probably similarly to how the Falcons-Bucks game went this past week, or the Vikings game just went this past week. Both games were 3-point games. I think Penix is – I think he's – I mean, in the very little I saw, I liked what I was seeing out of Penix.
Oh, yeah.
My hot take would be, I think I like the Falcons better as a team. I think the Vikings are probably better coached, and that's why they'll probably end up being better overall, in the future with J.J. McCarthy versus Penix. But I think the Falcons have better weapons. Their defense played fairly solid in that Bucs game. I know Baker had that, game-winning drive, but before that, the offense wasn't doing a whole lot. So I think the Falcons are a pretty solid team overall. I'm high on them in general. I would say a future that I kind of like, and now that they lost week 1, the price is probably even better. I think I would take the Falcons to win the NFC South, and for them to do that, they would have to win games like this. I'll just take the plus 3.5 to be safer, but I think I like the Falcons to win.
Love it. Last game on the docket. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Houston Texans. Taking the minus 2.5 and trusting C.J. Stroud and company to bounce back. Why are you taking the Texans?
So I think it's similar. This isn't like a Bucs hate or anything. I think it's kind of the Vikings Bucs similar situations. They're coming off high wins. A lot of times you don't back that up with another win. They're going to Houston. I think that hurts even more. They're going to play primetime. And I think that kind of suits well for the Texans. Obviously, Texans offense looked bad. They're hearing it this week. I think the Bucs, I think they have a little bit more advantage to have success against the Bucs versus the Rams. I think the Rams are a defense that still isn't probably talked about enough with how good it is. So I think the Texans will have a better chance against the Bucs, and I think the Texans defense itself is pretty dang good in its own right. So I'm gonna take the Texans at home to get right and cover this minus 2.5.
Love it. Got Clemson minus 3.5, USF plus 17.5, Florida plus 7.5, Notre Dame minus 6.5, Browns plus 12.5, Falcons plus 3.5, and Texans minus 2.5. 2-7 record coming into this week. Starting to get a good feel for how some of these teams and really who they are. A lot easier to start gambling and picking a lot of which side you want to be on once you can kind of see what these teams are and who they are. But those are the picks this week. If you had to pick one, which one is your favorite?
Well, the thing I'll say before this is you kept saying I have 8 picks. That's 7. The reason there's not 8 is because the 8th happened tonight. It was the Green Bay Packers minus 3.5. They covered that. So I would just like to say the script is starting to be switched.
We'll count that towards your record. That's the show started after the game started.
No, I know. That's just trust. But I think it's Clemson. I think it's it being a noon game. I think if this is a night game, I may not be as confident in just taking Clemson to continue the trend of them kind of owning Georgia Tech. But I think it being a noon game, ACC game, Clemson already losing, so they're kind of needing to take care of business in the ACC. I think that all sets up for them to, beat Georgia Tech fairly handily. I think another caveat is I think the fact that Miami and FSU are looking the way they are, I think Clemson sees that, and they know that, maybe 2 losses in the ACC isn't going to do it this year. So I think they'll get right early and take care of business.
So Clemson, play of the week. I'm with it. Aside from that,
I think
go ahead.
2 teams I think to look out for NFL-wise. One of them was the Packers tonight. I think the Packers are I think they'd be my pick right now to win the Super Bowl. They have arguably the best defense. I think their offense has a lot of weapons. Is a balanced offense as well. I mean, I think it just hinders on Jordan Love. And, I trust why can't I think of his name right now? Head coach.
I'm sorry, who'd you say?
Packers.
LaFleur?
Matt LaFleur. Yes. Big LaFleur guy. He hasn't taken care of business for Super Bowl. This kind of feels right. I mean, their Super Bowl window has just begun with the Micah Parsons deal. So I think they're an intriguing team. And then I think another dark horse team. I don't think this one's necessarily for the Super Bowl, but I think just a shout out to keep an eye on because I think they're going to be really good this year is the Chargers.
Yeah.
I think it was weird that it was on a Friday. I don't think as much was talked about as what it should have been on how they kind of handled the Chiefs. That game ended up being a one-score game, but the Chargers kind of dominated throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I saw a lot of love for that. I think the Chargers have a legitimate chance of finally breaking the AFC West streak. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say they're going to do it yet, but I think it's as close as a team's ever going to be. And no, I'm not just saying that because they beat the Chiefs. I think they righted a lot of the wrongs that they've had in the past. I think they got more depth at certain positions. Quentin Johnston seems to be coming along. And I think Herbert is, in terms of talent, he's one of those guys that's up in I think he's trying to scratch into that tier one. He's definitely not there at this point, but I could definitely see him, by the end of the year, we're talking about Herbert is respectfully in the conversation with the echelon of Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. I think he's a guy. I think he's the next up guy who has a chance to get into that level. And I think there's a decent chance we're talking about him in that echelon by the end of the season. So just wanted to shout out those two teams. Obviously the Packers won tonight, so that's an easy one to talk about. But I think those two teams are going to be really interesting as we go forward. And two teams that, have been in the playoffs recently, but not teams that have really made huge flashes in the playoffs, maybe winning a game here or there. But I think they're teams that can maybe make playoff runs, and especially the Packers, I think, have a great shot at just winning the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I agree. Those are two teams, obviously, that impressed me too. I watched that game against the Chiefs, and really the Chiefs didn't ever have stand a chance. I mean, the Chargers controlled that entire game. They're obviously very well coached with Jim Harbaugh there. Really good quarterback, like you said. I could definitely see a world where those either, if not both, if either one of those two teams are right there at the end. So, other than that, Norm, you got any last remarks on anything in the sports world?
Just another game that I think is going to be good, that I think people should be tuned into, that is probably going to get lost in how many great night games there are this week. There's like 4 really good night games this week, but I think what could potentially be the best one is Vandy, South Carolina. I think that's going to be a great game. I think Vandy is very good again, bringing Pavia back. And then South Carolina, I think they're kind of that playoff precipice team. And I think this is their I think that Virginia Tech was the first challenge. I think they kind of snuck, they handled the game, but, punt return touchdown, defense carried the load quite a bit. I think this is a game where Sellers has to start showing, I wouldn't put him in the disappointing quarterback ranks that we were talking about before. But I think it's a great opportunity for Sellers. I mean, it's Sellers versus Pavia. I'm probably not going to put Pavia in that conversation, but he is a dog in his own right. So I think that's a game that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, that I think is going to be one of the most electric ones of the weekend.
Yeah, I like it. Like you said, I think Sellers doesn't deserve to be in the Lagway, Klubnik, kind of that company at this point. But I think a lot of people expected a little bit more from him. But as we said a couple times, it's still early. There's still a lot of football to be played left. So some of these guys can kind of change the narrative on how their season has started through the first 2 games. A lot of ball to be played left. Definitely another exciting week of football that's coming up. I mean, we always shoot for about an hour and a half of these, and clearly that we had our first full weekend of football along with the Reds making a last-second playoff push here. I mean, there is nothing short of anything or any content to talk about. The other side of it, I want to we are approaching 10,000 views, so we're getting very, very, very close. So appreciate everybody's support, but if you could still continue to like, subscribe, interact, engage. I always get a lot of messages throughout the week just on different things that we talk about, or people have comments of just things that they want to hear throughout the show and whatnot. Definitely appreciate everybody's support. Really do this for fun more than anything. Just love talking ball, love talking gambling. Just a good time to get together for a couple hours and really talk about some key topics that are out there in the sports world. But other than that, appreciate everybody coming in, hanging out with us tonight. Middle Ground out.